Hey, my name's Ron. I'm 30 years old. I live in a small city, nothing too fancy, just an ordinary place where most people know each other, but not too well. I've been working at the same company for the past 8 years. It's one of those jobs that just keeps paying the bills. You know, nothing exciting but steady. My boss, Mr. Collins, is the kind of guy you wouldn't want to mess with. He's got that tough, no-nonsense attitude, and he doesn't tolerate any slack. To be honest, I was used to him barking orders at everyone, and I didn't think twice about it. So this one day, just another day at the office, things took a turn I didn't expect. Mr. Collins, in his usual strict tone, called me into his office. When I walked in, he barely looked up from his desk. His glasses were perched on the tip of his nose, and he was flipping through some papers, probably dealing with something important. But then, without even making an eye contact, he said, "Ron, I need you to do me a favor." I paused for a moment, unsure what was coming. "Sure, Mr. Collins, what do you need?" He looked up briefly, his face as serious as ever. "My wife Kaylee needs a ride home. She's been at the office and I've got back-to-back meetings. I can't make it to pick her up. You're the closest one, so you'll do." I wasn't exactly thrilled about it, but it was one of those things where you don't ask questions. When your boss tells you to do something, you do it. "No problem, Mr. Collins," I replied. "I'll take her." "Good," he said, returning to his paperwork. "Don't waste time. Now let me tell you about Kaylee. I'd seen her around the office a few times, but we didn't really know each other. She's Mr. Collins's wife, so I guess you could say she was like one of those distant figures you know exist but don't interact with. I'd never had any real conversations with her. She's beautiful, of course. Everybody knows that, but honestly, I didn't think much about her. She was just another person in Mr. Collins's world, and I didn't think there was anything special about her, at least not beyond the surface. So I head out to my car and wait for her. It felt kind of weird because, well, this wasn't something I was used to. Most of my interactions with the boss's wife were just polite nods when I'd pass her in the hallway. But now I was going to be driving her home. It was all business right, just another task on the to-do list. I wasn't expecting anything out of the ordinary. When she walked out of the building, I didn't know what to expect. Kaylee looked different than I remembered. Maybe it was because she wasn't in the office environment, but she seemed more relaxed, more approachable. She smiled at me as she got into the car, and I immediately felt a little awkward. It wasn't like I was uncomfortable, but I just didn't know how to act. We started driving, and for the first few minutes, it was just silence. I wasn't sure if I should say something, so I just focused on the road. I was trying not to make it weird, but it was hard to ignore the fact that this wasn't just a regular ride. It was Mrs. Collins sitting next to me, someone I barely knew but had seen in passing for so many years. I didn't want to do anything to make her feel uncomfortable. And then out of nowhere, she spoke. "So Ron, how's everything going with you?" she asked, her voice warm and friendly. I wasn't expecting that. I didn't even know what to say. Yeah, everything's fine, just the usual." "You know," I replied awkwardly. She smiled again. "You've been working with my husband for a long time, huh?" "Yeah, 8 years now," I said, feeling a little more at ease. "It's been a while." She nodded thoughtfully, and that's when she surprised me. She actually started talking about her life. Not in the way most people talk about their job or their family, but in a way that felt real, like she was letting me into her world for a minute. She told me about how hard it was for her to keep up with everything, especially with Mr. Collins always being so busy. "I know people think my life's perfect, but it's really not," she said quietly, looking out the window. "I've spent so much time alone waiting for him to notice me, but I don't even remember the last time I felt truly happy." She sighed, almost like she was talking to herself. I didn't know how to respond to that. It felt like I was hearing a side of her that no one else saw. I didn't expect Kaylee, of all people, to be so open about her struggles. But it was clear that she was more than just the picture-perfect wife of a successful businessman. I didn't know what to say, so I just listened. And that's when I realized this simple ride home, this small favor, was going to lead to something I never could have predicted. But at that moment, I had no idea what was coming next. That's how it all started. I didn't know how to react. The more she spoke, the more I realized Kaylee was nothing like the woman I thought she was. And maybe that's what made the next part so shocking. We were cruising down the road, the silence between us had faded, and I was getting comfortable with her talking. She wasn't the uptight, distant figure I had imagined. She was real human, someone who had her own struggles, her own story. But then, just as I was starting to settle into the conversation, she said something that made me freeze for a second. Ron, she began, her voice quieter now, almost like she was testing the waters. You ever miss the simpler days? You know, when we were younger, when life didn't have all these complications. I looked at her for a moment, not sure where she was going with this. I guess I said unsure. I mean, things were different when I was younger. She smiled a knowing smile. I'm not that much older than you know, she said, raising an eyebrow. I know I'm married, but sometimes I think about how much I miss just doing normal things, hanging out with friends, going to the movies, walking in the park, doing stuff just for fun, just living. That was when it hit me. She wasn't talking about what I thought she was. She wasn't making small talk. She was serious. Why not? She continued, her eyes glinting with a mischievous spark. When Mr. Collins is away on business next week, and maybe we could hang out, you, me, doing something simple, just like we're teenagers again. Go to a movie, take a walk in the park, have a picnic, just enjoy a day like normal people. I almost choked on my own breath. The words she said were like a punch to the gut. Wait, what? I asked, looking at her confused. You want me to hang out with you? She laughed softly, almost as if it was the most natural thing in the world. Yeah, why not? I'm sure you're busy with work and all, but I think it could be fun. We could go see a movie, maybe grab a coffee afterward, take a walk, sit in a park, do whatever. I just think it'd be nice to spend a day with someone who isn't so caught up in life. I could feel my heart racing a little. This was so unexpected. I never thought she would suggest something like this, not in a million years. Kaylee was beautiful, sophisticated, married to one of the most powerful men in the company. Why would she want to spend time with someone like me, someone who was just a regular employee, a guy who drove cars and worked on spreadsheets all day? I looked at her, trying to process everything. But Kaylee, I don't know if that's a good idea. I mean, Mr. Collins, I don't want to cause any problems. She waved her hand dismissively, her face softening. Oh, don't worry about him. He won't even know. I'm asking you, not him, just as two people who need a break from their routine. No one needs to know. I could feel the tension in my chest. I wanted to say no. I wanted to turn it down, to keep things professional and not risk my job, my reputation, my future. But there was something about her. Something about the way she looked at me, the way she was so genuine, that made it hard to refuse. It was wrong, I knew that. I understood the risks. If anyone found out, it could cost me my job, maybe even my career. A guy like me didn't get second chances in this kind of environment. But at the same time, she wasn't just some distant cold boss's wife anymore. She was a woman who felt neglected, who wanted something different, someone to share her time with. She wasn't just Mr. Collins's wife. She was Kaylee, a person who needed connection. Come on, Ron, she persisted, her voice so calm, so persuasive. Just one day, let's do something fun. It's not like we're breaking any rules. We're not going to do anything crazy, just enjoy a day out like regular people. Think about it. You'll be helping me more than you know. I wanted to say no, I really did, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. There was something in her eyes, something I couldn't quite place, but it made me feel like I had to say yes. I knew this was risky, hell. It could ruin everything, but part of me wanted to do it, to get out of my usual routine and do something different. And that's why I found myself saying it. All right, I said, my voice almost a whisper. Fine, but only if it's really just for fun. No one else can know about this. Kaylee smiled, her eyes lighting up with something that felt like relief, like she'd just won a small victory. Of course, she said, her voice soft but firm. It'll be our little secret. And just like that, the wheels were in motion. I couldn't believe it. I was about to go on a secret, impromptu adventure with my boss's wife. I knew it was a bad idea, but I didn't know how to back out now. What had I just gotten myself into? I had no idea, but I was about to find out. Almost 2 weeks had passed since that car ride with Kaylee. I was convinced it was all some kind of joke, maybe a test or a game she was playing. I hadn't heard anything from her after that conversation, and nothing seemed to change at work. It was like nothing had happened at all, and I went back to my usual routine, pretending it was just a weird, awkward moment that never really mattered. But then it happened. Mr. Collins left for his business trip just like Kaylee had mentioned, and that's when I got the message. It came through my phone around noon, just as I was finishing up a report. The notification popped up, and when I saw who it was from, my stomach dropped. Well, did my proposal make it through or not? It was from Kaylee. I froze for a second, unsure what to do. My heart started to race again like I was back in that car, hearing her talk about our plan for the day out. I didn't know if she was serious or if this was some sort of test to see if I would take her up on it. For a minute, I just stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over the keyboard. I wanted to ignore it, but then I realized that if I did, it would be worse. Maybe she was just trying to be friendly, or maybe she was hoping I'd say yes. I still wasn't sure what to think, so I responded, I guess it's time for me to find out. I sent it without much thought, but once I hit send, I regretted it. I was nervous, unsure of what I was getting myself into, but before I could second guess myself, my phone buzzed again. Another message from Kaylee, then another and another. She was relentless, texting me about the details, asking if I had thought it through, reminding me of the time, even suggesting we go to her favorite place in the park. I kept getting these messages, and it felt like I was being pulled in deeper with every ping. After what seemed like hours, my phone rang. I stared at it for a moment, but before I realized it was her calling, I hesitated. Biting my lip, but against my better judgment, I picked up. Hey, Ron. Her voice came through warm and teasing. I thought you'd be a little braver. What do you think? Are you in or are you too scared? I tried to stay calm, but I could feel my heart beating faster. Kaylee, I don't know about this, I said. I mean, I never thought you were serious, and now it feels like, I don't know. It feels real. I'm not sure if I should do this. She laughed lightly. I thought you were bolder than this. Come on, Ron, it'll be fun. It's just a day out. We're not breaking any rules, right? So let's go. It's already set up and I've been waiting for you to say yes. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. All right, I finally said, sighing. Let's do it, but just one day. Okay, and nothing crazy. Just a normal day. Her voice perked up immediately and I could practically hear her smiling through the phone. Great, I'll pick you up in an hour. I didn't know why I said yes, but something in me wanted to. I felt like I was stepping into something I couldn't get out of, but a part of me also felt a strange excitement. Maybe it was the thrill of doing something different, something forbidden, or maybe it was just the way she made it seem so normal, so innocent. When the hour was up, I was standing outside waiting when her car pulled up. I didn't know what to expect. She looked amazing as always, dressed casually in a way that made her seem less like a boss's wife and more like, well, a regular person. She smiled at me as I climbed into the passenger seat. We didn't waste any time. First, we went to the movie theater just like she had planned. We saw a movie neither of us had really been interested in, but that wasn't the point. We laughed about it afterward, talking about the dumbest scenes and pretending to be critics. Afterwards, she suggested a walk in the park. As we strolled along the paths, she seemed so carefree. She had this lightness in her step, something I hadn't seen before. And then unexpectedly, she took my hand. At first, I was frozen, unsure what to do. My mind raced, my heart pounding in my chest. But I didn't pull away. Instead, I walked beside her, wondering if I was dreaming or if this was real. Was she really holding my hand? Was this really happening? We walked for a while, and before I knew it, we were heading to a spot in the park that overlooked the town. It was a quiet, secluded area where you could see everything below, lights twinkling in the distance as the sun started to set. We sat down on a bench, and she turned to me, her eyes glimmering in the fading light. She started talking, her voice soft. It's funny, isn't it, how we think we have it all figured out, and then we find out we're just lost. Like everyone thinks I have everything, but sometimes I wonder if I even remember what happiness really feels like. I didn't know how to respond. I just sat there listening as she told me about her life, her marriage, and how she felt isolated even with everything she had. I could tell she was opening up in a way she didn't with anyone else, and for a moment I didn't feel like just an employee. I felt like someone she could trust. I didn't know what this day meant, but one thing was clear. My life had changed. I didn't know how this would end or what would happen next, but I couldn't deny that I was hooked. It was like being a teenager again, carefree, excited, and a little terrified. But I knew one thing for sure, things were never going to be the same. We sat there for a while, the city lights stretching out below us, the sky now fully dark. The air had a coolness to it, and the park was quiet except for the occasional rustling of leaves and the gentle breeze. The atmosphere was serene, almost magical, as we both gazed out. The weight of the moment seemed to settle around us. Kaylee, in her usual calm way, was the first to speak. "I've been thinking a lot today," she began, her voice soft, almost wistful. "I can't even remember the last time I did something this simple, you know? Like when I was younger, when everything felt so easy. I used to just go out with my friends, do stupid things without worrying about the consequences. But now it feels like life is always demanding something from me." She paused, her gaze dropping to the ground, lost in thought. "I've always had everything I wanted, but sometimes I miss feeling free. I miss feeling like nothing could go wrong. I didn't know how to respond." Her words hit me harder than I expected. I'd always assumed that people with money, especially someone like her, married to the richest man in the city, didn't have these concerns. It seemed like everything should have been perfect. But I couldn't deny what I was hearing. The way she spoke, it was clear that having everything didn't mean having everything she needed. I cleared my throat before speaking. "But Kaylee, when you're the wife of the richest man in the city, doesn't it make things easier? I mean, you have the freedom to go anywhere, do anything, you can eat whatever you want, stay in the best places. Doesn't that make it all worth it? All the money, the luxury, the freedom." Her lips curved into a small, sad smile and she shook her head. "You think so, right? But it's not about the money, Ron. It's about emotions, about feeling something real. No amount of money can replace that." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. In my world, money was supposed to fix everything, but hearing her say this, it made me realize how different our lives were. And yet how much alike we might be in our need for something more than just material wealth. Before I could say anything else, she looked at me with a tenderness that caught me off guard. "Thank you," she said quietly. "Thank you for doing this, for coming with me. It really means more than you know." Then to my complete shock, she leaned in. Her hand moved gently to the side of my face, and before I could even process it, she kissed me. It wasn't anything intense. Nothing that could have crossed any lines, just a soft, fleeting kiss, almost like a moment of gratitude. For a second, I didn't know what to do. My heart raced, and all the usual thoughts I would have had in that moment seemed to vanish. I didn't pull away. Instead, I found myself responding. It was a strange feeling, something that felt right and wrong all at once. But in that moment, I couldn't stop myself. She pulled away, first her eyes locking with mine, as if searching for any sign of regret. But all I could do was stare at her, still processing everything. I wasn't sure where we stood after that, and part of me didn't want to think about it too much. "Well," she said, breaking the silence that was unexpected, "but I'm glad it happened. I really needed this today, Ron." I nodded, still a bit speechless. "Yeah, me too," I said, my voice a little hoarse. I couldn't remember the last time I'd felt this way, so confused and exhilarated at the same time. But one thing was clear, this day had changed something. She stood up, brushing the dirt off her pants. "I should get going," she said. "I've got a long night ahead of me, and you probably have a busy day tomorrow. But I won't forget this." We walked back to her car, neither of us saying much. The night felt heavier now, as though the kiss had marked a shift in our relationship that neither of us was quite ready to understand. When we reached the car, she turned to me one last time, her smile a little more genuine than it had been all day. "Thanks again, Ron," for everything, she said softly, her voice almost like a whisper. I nodded, my throat tight. "Anytime, Kaylee." As she drove off, I stood there watching her taillights disappear into the night. My mind was racing, replaying everything that had happened. This wasn't just some friendly outing anymore. It was something deeper, something I wasn't sure I was ready for. But I couldn't deny the pull I felt, the curiosity, the connection. And as I walked back to my apartment that night, I realized that whatever this was, it was just the beginning. A week had passed since that night on the hill. Mr. Collins had returned from his business trip, and life at work carried on as usual. Nothing had changed, at least on the surface. Kaylee and I kept our distance, exchanging only brief, polite interactions when necessary. I convinced myself that whatever happened that evening had been a fleeting moment, a temporary escape for her. Nothing more. And then one night everything changed. I had just gotten home after a long day at work. I kicked off my shoes, sank into the couch, and turned on the TV, hoping to shut off my brain for a while. It was already late, too late for visitors, so when my doorbell rang, my heart immediately jumped. I hesitated for a second before getting up and making my way to the door. When I opened it, I froze. Kaylee stood there holding two suitcases, her hair slightly messy, her expression a mix of exhaustion and determination. "Kaylee," I said, completely caught off guard, "what are you doing here?" She let out a deep breath as if she had been holding it in the entire way over. "I left him," she said, her voice steady but laced with emotion. "I couldn't do it anymore, Ron. I don't want that life. I don't want the money, the fake smiles, the empty house. I don't want to be someone I'm not." I stared at her, trying to process what she was saying. "You left him." She nodded, her grip tightening on the suitcase handles. "I packed my bags and told him I was done, that I couldn't pretend anymore. I didn't tell him where I was going, I just walked out." I ran a hand over my face, my mind racing. "Kaylee, do you know what this means? Do you have any idea what's going to happen now when he finds out you're here?" "He won't," she said quickly, "at least not right away. And when he does, I'll deal with it. But right now, I needed to be somewhere real with someone who makes me feel real." I felt like the air had been knocked out of my lungs. This was insane. Just a week ago, we had been two people living completely separate lives. And now she was standing in front of me, telling me she'd left her husband, one of the most powerful men in the city. Because of what? Because of me. This isn't a small thing, Kaylee," I said, struggling to find the right words. "I mean, what do you expect to happen now? Do you really think you can just walk away from that life and everything will be fine?" "I don't know," she admitted. "I just know that I can't go back and I don't want to." I exhaled slowly, feeling the weight of the moment pressing down on me. My job, my life, everything I had built it could all come crashing down if this went wrong. And yet, as I looked at her standing there so vulnerable and yet so sure of what she wanted, I couldn't bring myself to turn her away. "Come inside," I finally said, stepping aside. She looked at me for a second as if making sure I really meant it, then picked up her suitcases and walked in. As I shut the door behind her, I realized something terrifying. This wasn't just about her leaving Collins. This was about what came next. And for the first time, I wasn't sure if I was ready for it. If you had told me a few months ago that I'd be living with Kaylee Collins, the wife of my boss, I would have laughed in your face. And yet here I was. I kept going to work, expecting every day to be my last. I thought Mr. Collins would eventually find out where Kaylee had gone, that he'd connect the dots, that he'd walk into the office one morning, call me in, and fire me on the spot. But nothing happened. To my complete shock, Kaylee had been telling the truth. She never told him where she went, and Collins, he didn't even seem to care. At work, he was more irritable than usual, barking orders and slamming his office door shut, but he never mentioned Kaylee, never asked anyone to look for her. It was as if he had already written her off. That should have made me feel relieved, but instead it just made me angry. After years of marriage, after building a life together, he didn't even try to get her back. She was right all along. She had been just another piece of furniture in his life, a trophy wife who had finally had enough. Work stayed the same, but my life outside of it was unrecognizable. Kaylee and I built something real. It wasn't just the excitement of the situation or the rush of secrecy, it was something deeper. I had never met a woman like her. She was kind, funny, full of life. She cared about the small things. She actually listened when I talked about my day, and for the first time in a long time, I felt what it meant to have a real home. She wasn't just living with me, she was waiting for me. I'd come home to the smell of food looking in the kitchen, to her sitting on the couch, curled up with a book, waiting for me to sit down and talk about my day. We'd go on walks late at night, hand in hand, talking about everything and nothing. We'd laugh until our stomachs hurt. We'd wake up next to each other and feel like the world outside didn't matter. I wasn't just happy, I was alive. But as time passed, I realized something. I couldn't keep working for Collins, not because he suspected anything, but because I couldn't handle it. Every time I saw him, I was reminded of the situation, of the risk, of the fact that as much as he didn't seem to care about Kaylee leaving, I was still living in his shadow. I didn't want that, not for me, not for her. So one morning I walked into his office and handed in my resignation. "Any particular reason?" Collins asked, barely looking up from his desk. "I just think it's time to move on," I said simply. He shrugged. "Suit yourself." And that was it. No accusations, no questions, no second thought. That night, I came home, and Kaylee was in the kitchen stirring something on the stove. She looked up at me, her face lighting up the way it always did when she saw me. "You're home early," she said, smiling. I took a deep breath and stepped toward her, wrapping my arms around her from behind. "I quit," I said. She turned her eyes wide. "Wait, what? I quit my job," I said again, grinning. "I don't need it. I don't need him. I just need us." For a second, she just stared at me. Then slowly a smile spread across her face, the kind of smile that made me realize I had made the right choice. "Ron," she whispered, running her fingers through my hair. We had nothing planned, no perfect roadmap for the future, but that didn't matter. We had each other, and for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of what came next. I was finally free. Here's a question for you. If you were Ron faced with the opportunity to spend a day with Kaylee, knowing the potential consequences, would you have agreed to her proposal or would you have declined to avoid jeoparding your professional and personal life?